My parents promised to pay for the surgery that would save my daughter's life. Then the hospital told me they never got the deposit. My daughter Lily had a heart condition that needed surgery or she would die. The surgery cost $120,000 and insurance wouldn't cover it. My parents sat me down and said, "We have the money saved. We'll pay for it." That's what grandparents do. I was so grateful and touched because I'd never felt like my parents cared about me the way they did my sister. But finally, they were here for me when it really mattered. The hospital scheduled the surgery for 6 weeks out. I started planning everything around the surgery date and took a leave of absence from work and told Lily that Grandma and Grandpa were going to help fix her heart. She made them thank you cards with glitter and hearts all over them. They didn't answer because they were busy with my sister, who'd just gotten engaged and was planning her dream wedding. But for once, I wasn't jealous. All that mattered was Lily was going to be okay. And I called my parents to ask about the payment timeline because the hospital needed a $40,000 deposit, and they said, "We're handling it. Stop worrying about the details." Lily started getting weaker as the weeks went by, and she couldn't go to school anymore because she'd get too tired walking from class to class. She spent most of her days on the couch watching cartoons while I tried not to panic. I kept calling my parents asking when they were going to send the deposit to the hospital, and they kept saying, "We already talked to them. It's all set. Stop stressing." 4 weeks before the surgery, the hospital called me and said, "We still haven't received the deposit that was supposed to arrive 2 weeks ago." I called my parents immediately, and my mom said, "That's strange. We'll call them right now and sort it out." I tried to believe there was just some administrative mix-up. 3 weeks before surgery, the hospital called again and said they were pushing the surgery back 1 week because they still didn't have the deposit. I drove to my parents' house and they weren't home, so I called my dad and he said, "We're helping your sister look at venues. We'll talk to the hospital tomorrow." Lily's doctor pulled me aside the next day and said, "We can't wait more than another month. Her heart can't take much more." I started having panic attacks in my car between appointments. I saw my parents tagged in my sister's posts at the bridal boutique and at the wedding venue and at the rehearsal dinner location. 2 weeks before surgery, the hospital called and the woman on the phone said, "If we don't receive payment by Friday, we're canceling the surgery completely." I called my parents 15 times and they didn't answer. I showed up at their house Thursday night without calling first. My dad opened the door and his face went white when he saw me standing there. I said, "The hospital still doesn't have the deposit and they're going to cancel Lily's surgery tomorrow if they don't get it." My parents looked at each other and my mom said, "Come inside, we need to talk." I walked into the living room and my sister was sitting on the couch surrounded by wedding magazines. We all sat down and nobody said anything for a long time until my dad finally looked at the floor and said, "We need to talk to you about the money situation." I felt my chest tighten and I said, "What money situation?" My mom said, "Your sister's wedding is this Saturday and we already paid the vendors." I just stared at them because I didn't understand what that had to do with anything. I said, "Okay, but what about Lily's deposit?" My dad said, "We had to make a choice and your sister only gets married once in her life." The room started spinning and I said, "Are you telling me you spent Lily's surgery money on a wedding?" My sister jumped in and said, "I've been planning this for 6 months. Do you have any idea how much money we'd lose in deposits if I canceled now?" I looked at my parents and said, "You promised me. You looked me in the eye and promised you'd save her life." My mom said, "We thought you'd figure something out." My dad said, "But we can't get the wedding deposits back. The money is already gone. The venue has been paid. The caterers have been paid. The florist has been paid." I stood up and looked at my sister and said, "My daughter might die." And my sister said, "I'm sorry, but I can't put my entire life on hold just because Lily is sick." My mom actually said, "We were hoping you'd come to the wedding on Saturday and celebrate with us instead of making this harder than it has to be." I looked at all 3 of them sitting there and I said, "What time does the ceremony start on Saturday?" I showed up at the wedding and gave a speech during the reception, telling every single person there exactly what my parents had done with Lily's surgery money. The groom's parents were horrified and wrote a check for the full amount of Lily's surgery right then and there. Lily had her surgery and she's completely healthy. My sister is divorced and I no longer speak to her or my parents.